Good morning. Welcome to Morning Moments. I am so glad that you came and joined us today. We have another person in the film industry, and when I start looking at her titles, actress, director, producer, writer, educator, property master, and the list goes on and on and on. She's just a filmmaker. She just does anything that's needed to get the job done. And it's been a delight getting to know Sheilah Munger. Welcome, Sheila.
Thank you so much, Andy. I appreciate you having me.
I've interviewed so many people that you've been on other projects with, and I asked them the same question I'm going to ask you. What do you do, and why do you do it?
I told you before that I get asked what I don't do, and I tell them I don't sleep very much. That is just, sleep deprivation, having kids, and we have 9. And so what I do primarily is I'm the wife and mother of my kids, and I have a degree in education. So a long time ago, we felt encouraged to homeschool my children. And I didn't know I was signing up for homeschooling until I was 63. I had no idea. But along that journey, that homeschooling has allowed us to do other things that Lord has set in our path. So one of those has been film. Others is, activities for the field days and different things, coaching along the way for basketball and volleyball. There's things that I do that are because I had a well-rounded education. In what we do now currently in film, I assist my husband in whatever capacity is needed for our heart of ministering to the church, ministering to hurting souls, to the lost, to point them to Christ, to glorify God, to be the Aaron and the Hur holding up Moses's arms, whatever it is that Lord has for us. And often we'll start a project and we see that this is what the Lord is in and he'll prosper it and it'll go. And then other times we'll start a project and it'll get changed and morphed. And that's kind of our latest thing. I was completely baffled by Matthew Henry's commentary on Psalm 37, or maybe it's 34, but it's the delight yourself also in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. So it's like, okay, well, what desires should I have? What do you have? What is it that I actually am passionate about? And I really go back to when I surrendered to missions. I go back to that time when I wanted to see people come to know the Lord that I loved. And so we would start that project, and that delighting, Matthew Henry says, is a surrendering. How do you do that? If the Lord can save your soul, he says, you can acquiesce to all his disposals. And so being willing to submit and just say, here is my talent, here's my time, here's everything I have, Lord. So everything that we've done has been that submitting to him. I got hijacked into film, honestly. I was doing something I thought I was supposed to be doing, and then Paul found a passion he didn't know he had, and we had the decision, do you cater? Do I direct? Do you direct? I don't know. Well, I can't cater, so it's like I'm directing. Like, oh, that's not fair. So it was whatever's in front of us to do, and that has morphed and changed, as you can see. I wrote the monologue for that project, and that was encouraged to flesh out into a story. And so, you have a vulnerability to, when you put your passions out on film, the areas in which the Lord has touched you and taught you. So in the doing of that, it's been things we've learned either by trial or by fire. And so we're doing film now. And I think what makes that possible is my husband is willing to walk away from it. If it doesn't pay the bills and we can't, we stay in that, our priority is our family. So that's been a blessing to be a part of and to co-labor with him. It's not every day you're going to work with your best friend. So that's a lot of fun. So I do that with writing and, concepts. And then Paul's the smart brains. He's the producer, and we sit in on all the conversations, and we have meetings, and we talk about it. And it's, as a husband and wife team, we do it all the time, day in, day out. We're always discussing the next step. And then in directing, I delight to direct my own children, but on a film set, you actually have everybody pulling for the same vision. And that's very exciting. When you can see what the Lord has for you, and the entirety of the project goes towards meeting of those goals, and to see Christ made known in whatever area that is there. Like if it's a concept of God's love, which is primarily the films in general, and understanding what it's like to be forgiven, and all these themes that we cover, those are the delight of who and what our heartbeat is. So making it a tangible display is quite enjoyable in the creative process. And then in the doing of other things along the way, I, as a wedding coordinator, and I would help people for their weddings and design their program, or do their flowers, or help them with whatever, catering, or any of those things. Different skill sets in being involved in a lot of different things, we're allowed to hone in and be helpful. So it's really, you just find the ways that you're needed, and tailor what you're doing to that need. So that's where I developed into set dressing and production design and property master. Those are things I do every day as a mom in a home. I'm always reset dressing my home. I'm always, doing wardrobe on my children. And it's just a very different, it's more focused on one thing versus what I do all the time with the multi tasking. So any of those things that are needed that I have a skill set for, I'm just going to surrender it to the Lord, and whatever he wants me to do. I do find a lot of enjoyment in design. I love art. I used to teach art. So there's that, and as an English minor, I like to write, and I love story, and I love, deep characters who have, real struggles, not just, oh, I want to do this or that. And it's like, no, there's an arresting of what really you're wrestling with in our human capacity. So a lot of the characters are from, hurtful places, and it's shared tactfully, because the scriptures aren't visual unless, you're really imaginative and you can put it all together. But there are some really deep, all the emotions that we go through are presented in scripture. And it's a very great responsibility to handle it properly visually, because that's a weighty responsibility. So we're very careful. So that's what I do, just whatever is needed, and what the Lord sets before me, and I'm surrendered to, being what is needed at home, and being a faithful wife and mother. And then, beyond that, just, I'm not going to turn away the Lord's provision. So, we have an obligation to provide for our children. And so if the Lord shows me with an opportunity to work for the deck crew, where I work on for construction, or I'm painting or staining a deck, or giving my body to science, or whatever it is that we have to do to do the highest calling of our family, I'll do. So I've done all that crazy stuff. And
I love the reference you made to Psalms 34:7, where it's talking about the delighting the Lord.
Yeah.
And people, I think that sometimes that's some of the most misunderstood scriptures that in the Bible, because people grab a hold of that. Oh, he'll give me the desires of my heart.
Right.
And they love that they could claim the desires of the heart, but the delighting, and then the scripture afterwards, it says, commit yourself, and
Right.
and commit your ways to him, and he'll bring it to pass.
Right.
We want the desires of our heart, but we don't want to commit our ways. But once we commit our ways, our desires change.
They do change. And that's what you would say, okay, well, what are my desires? I don't even know what I should righteously be desiring. And when you do that committing of whatever you set before me, I'm willing. I'm going to be that person. I'm there.
I heard somebody say the other day, I want my heart to break for what breaks God's heart.
Yes. Move with compassion. I mean, that's what
Yes.
for the multitude that had no shepherd. That's really the struggle for me. Is I surrendered to missions as a 5 or 6-year-old. And
Yeah.
it's like, Lord, why do you have me in the States? Why am I stateside? Why am I doing this? And then you see film as your ministry, and you see the lives that are touched. You would never interact with these people.
Yeah.
And nothing. You would not have the opportunity.
I often say 2/3 of God's name is go. So, you know,
I love it. That's great.
he wants us to go, but doesn't mean all of us have to go in the mission field.
No. And
Eh,
your mission is your family too,
yes,
and right in your
absolutely.
circle.
Yep.
So I don't know a stranger in town. I'll talk to anyone. I pick up, one of them was an addict lady, and that's a 5 or 6 year endeavor, an investment of time, but it's not my time. I have to redeem the time.
Absolutely.
You have to mingle without being compromised. And
Yeah.
that's really what we are trying to do, to be salt and light. You got to be salty. You just do.
Absolutely. Well, Sheila, it has been speaking of delight, it has been a delight to get to know you today. And I think some of you may need to hear this interview 2 or 3 times, because there are some things that she said that were really, really strong and deep that you need to hear over and over again. And I really thank you for giving me what was in your heart today, and what you believe that God was speaking to your heart, and that this message needs to be passed on to somebody else as well.
When you realize that you are the unfaithful spouse to the Lord, and he hits you broadside with your sin, and then he says, I'm going to shower you, and I'm going to kill the fatted calf for you, and then reinstate you, and now you're my joint heir. There's nothing that delights my heart more.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're going to put down below the credits, what you've done, what you're working on. But what I want everyone to do today is, after this interview is over, take the time and pray for Sheila and her husband, Paul, and their children, that God would continue to use this family for the glory of God, and that give them strength in their journey. And the struggle there's struggle in the journey, but pray that God will give them strength in their struggle, and that God would continue to put them right where he needs to. Thank you so much for sharing your heart today.
Yeah. Yes, you're welcome. Appreciate it. Lord bless.
God bless you. And thank you for sharing, for joining us on Morning Moments. And I'm going to ask you, if you would, please keep on coming back. May God bless you.